So I want to show this video for a second here. This is a video from a couple years ago. This guy here that's about to speak, his name is Patrick Clawson. He's an American economist and Middle East scholar. He is currently the director for the research at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. You can see in the background here, that's where he's speaking to, and a senior editor for Middle East Quarterly. Now, this guy, why I want to show this video and why this guy is important is because he's about to reveal exactly how we get into these wars, exactly how we get into Middle East wars, how they sell you the idea of war, and why these scenarios that happen before we decide to go advance in egregious warfare, how they coordinate and play out in ordinance with the intelligence agencies, with the U.S. government, and how it helps us sell us the idea of war. So listen to what this guy says.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And
so he says that crisis initiation is fairly tough. And what does he mean by that? He means that these scenarios, for example, October 7th, for example, the Gulf of Tonkin, the USS Liberty, those scenarios that look extremely dangerous, that sell us the idea of one country attacking another and how we need to get into to defend ourselves, that is tough. That is tough to have these planned attacks, these false flags, like Assad gassing his own people. Because people are aware, there's journalists out there that will investigate it and come to the conclusion that it was a false flag attack. Look at Aaron Mate when he exposed the gas scam, the false flag initiative that Assad gassed his own people. He was credited. He got awards for the amount of work that he discredited that narrative that came directly from the State Department in the United States. So here we go.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people...
So he's saying it's best for U.S. interests to get us into war. It's best for U.S. interests to lie to the national public to get us into outrageous warfare. Warfare that jeopardizes our security, sacrifices our own men and women overseas, and puts a danger to the rest of the world. That's in the best of U.S. interests. And it's hard because a lot of people might compromise it, might think critically about warfare. And they have to create these crises to get people involved in it. Now, for example, people might remember this, and I wasn't born, so I can't speak personally about this, but once upon a time during the Gulf War, there was the narrative that they were throwing babies out of incubators. The Iraqis were coming into Kuwait and throwing babies out of incubators. That is what President George H.W. Bush said, and that's also what a little girl said in Congress, that she came to testify and saying that Kuwait is being stormed in by Iraqis, they're taking babies out of incubators, and cried on camera. But what was later revealed after being told this, and it was shown all over the United States to drive up favorability for that war, because people were against the Gulf War initially, so they brought this marketing gimmick. It was later to be revealed that that little girl was the ambassador of Kuwait, that they trained her, they gave her acting lessons, they coached her into giving a performance in front of Congress that went on national television so that people saw the heartbreak and were easily convinced and duped for outrageous warfare that they were previously against. And this guy is saying that it's hard now to come up with these false flag initiatives at this time and day because a lot more people have previously understood the false manufacturing of these narratives to get us into warfare. And we also have the ability of cell phones. We have the ability to fact check ourselves and fact check what these guys are saying.
People might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out...
So he's saying there that all these presidents, well, they want to go to war, but they couldn't get the favorability until this scenario, surprise, surprise, planned out and got broadcast on national television, broadcast around the nation, that convinced enough people to get us into warfare. As almost if these scenarios, these horrific events, the Gulf of Tonkin, the U.S. Liberty, Pearl Harbor, were all kind of manufactured on the same notion. On the notion that if we preempt some sort of horrific scene that will pull the emotional heartstrings of people, that will convince enough people to get us into warfare.
That Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war. But I would...
So he's saying that if the Iranians don't compromise for us to invade their country and start warfare, then we're just going to do it anyway. This is like Sopranos type of dialogue there. Well, if you guys aren't going to start a warfare, I guess, we're going to bing and bada boom and go over there ourselves. I would hate for your country to get toppled down the stairs. I would hate for your leaders to find a horse's head in their bed. You making fun of me, Gabagoo? Might as well have Joe Pesci delivering this speech. Just how crazy this is.
I would just like to suggest that one can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why?
Now it's direct mafia talk. It'd be a shame if one of these Iranian submarines go down. It'd be a shame. So you probably don't want to mess with us. You probably don't want to, protect your sovereignty, if you will. You probably don't want to defend and just let us do our thing, okay? We're in waste management, Gabagoo. I can't believe this. And this is coming from a geek in a suit and tie telling a room full of investors and reporters. And it sounds like the dark alleys of this seems like a scene right out of The Godfather. Like some hitman in the dark alley of Hell's Kitchen, New York, telling, hey, so it'd be a real shame if those Iranian subs did not come up afloat. What I'm saying. Maybe they could permanently sleep with the fishes. And the reason I'm showing you all this is because this is how you manufacture warfare. This is why every single time a war breaks out, there's usually some sort of scenario that plays into it that gets the acceptance from the general public to sell you the idea, to pull the emotional heartstrings and manipulate people to accept unjust warfare. Just like how October 7th got people convinced enough that genocide is acceptable. Just like how 9/11 was able to justify the means of going to Afghanistan, going to Iraq, and deliberating people's civil rights with the Patriot Act. Because they used 9/11 as the opportunity, as the excuse to say that, well, you don't want another terrorist attack happen again, so we got to spy on you guys. We got to install the Patriot Act, which they already drafted before 9/11. So this is already in play. This is already in play. They just need these opportunities to happen out of just nowhere, just a convenience, what a coincidence, to happen so they can manufacture enough support for unjust warfare for U.S. interest. Not your interest, but business elite interest, which is what all these wars come down to. They're all business wars. They're all economic warfare. It has nothing to do with security, nothing to do with defense. They couldn't care at all for the lives of anybody, not even their own people. These are ghoulish, nefarious, narcissistic monsters that only care about flourishing their riches as much as we send troops over there to cause death and disparity. That's all they care about.
We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just suggesting
I'm not advocating that.
This is not a either or proposition of, it's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians. We could get nastier at that.
So there you go. Now they're just openly stating that we should create an opportunity to get us involved into warfare with Iran. And I just want to show some recent examples of this because Israel, our greatest ally, our greatest partner, the saviors of the Middle East, as some Zionists would say, are doing them themselves too. So you may remember this came out in November of last year. Shortly after October 7th, it has come to reveal this from the Cradle, saying that Israel admits it killed its own Nova Music Festival. That festival that Hamas came in hang gliders and F-150s, somehow broke through the Iron Dome and stole a bunch of citizens at that music festival, which they knew was a security risk. They knew that having this festival right at the gates of Gaza was going to be a bad idea. Almost like it was intentional. Almost like they knew it was going to happen. Preemptive attack so that they can advance their warfare and find a strategic marketing gimmick to sell you the idea of endless genocide, which is what is happening right now. And it says a police investigation shows Israeli Apache helicopters opened fire on attendees of the Nova Music Festival during the October 7th Hamas attack. That was shortly after. That was November 19th, weeks after that attack. And here's also from Megatron pointing out that police right now in Israel are beating down Orthodox Jews in Israel protesting mobilization and Netanyahu's war this evening. So cops are smacking down and cracking the heads of Jewish people, calling an end for this warfare. So again, any notion when they tell you that this is about humanity, when it talks about security, is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Any of those buzzwords where they tell you about saving democracy, saving the sovereignty, defending the borders, it's all complete bullshit. We don't even do that for ourselves. Why the hell would we do it for another nation? Because we know it's bullshit. They use that to psych you out as a marketing gimmick to sell you the idea of warfare. And they blast it through the mainstream media echo chamber to make you believe it. Because why else would CNN lie to us? Why else would MSNBC lie to us? They keep it on repeat because they're definitely telling the truth, right? They keep showing you the same B-roll coverage. They keep using the same buzzwords. They keep manipulating you from anchor to anchor, telling you the exact same story, almost like it was a manufactured narrative driven to the mainstream media as a soundboard to lie and manipulate the general public. It's exactly what they're doing, folks. And this is the result of it. This is what our humanitarian action does to countries. So there's Gaza of 2023. It's unlivable, completely unsustainable. These people have completely demolished any structural integrity of that nation. And yet they still want you to believe that it's for the hostages. It's for stopping the terrorist groups. Which terrorist groups? The terrorist groups that they fund. The terrorist groups that they put money towards. So that they could easily find an excuse to decimate these towns. So there's Gaza 23 and there's Beirut. Because, of course, we'll just go to the next country and slaughter their people, blow up their towns, blow up their villages. Of course. And we'll just lie to the people and say it's the hostages. It's Hamas. It's October 7th. These people are somehow related to terrorism. But yet they never know where the terrorists actually came from. They'll never know exactly the true intent of war, and they will never inform people about that, because once people actually know about why we're in warfare, they might actually go against the narrative. They might actually have questions and concerns. They may contradict, stir things up. And that's why that guy there, that Patrick Clawson or Patrick Clawson guy, said that crisis initiation is hard to do. Because more and more people are waking up to this.
Talked about it.
That's not it. So, there you go. There's the United States and the State Department admitting they purposely intend to manipulate the general public, create these scenarios, create these false flag attacks to give a horrific excuse to play with the emotional heartstrings, to sell you the idea of their unjust war for business purposes. Because they don't intend to secure anybody. They don't intend to actually provoke any measure of humanity whatsoever. These are ghoulish characters. These are heinous people. If I can even say they're people, they're heinous monsters who don't have an ounce of integrity, who don't have an ounce of soul for their own people. So why the hell should I believe that they give a damn about any other nation when all of it comes down to a calculative attack done by global warfare, regime change artists and scam artists and nefarious ghouls like Netanyahu who contribute to it?